Welcome to 20-Side Adventures. This video we're going to be talking about multiclassing and archetypes in Pathfinder Second Edition. There's been a lot of videos and comments circulating in the community about Archetype, the free Archetype alternate rules, and I thought for new players or folks that are just maybe looking into free Archetype that the archetypes might be a little daunting and overwhelming. So this video is to give you the basics on what archetypes do, how to utilize them, and how to navigate the 130 some odd archetypes that you can find on Archives of Nethys. If you guys like the content we've been putting out here, please give us a like and subscribe down below. Trying to grow this channel and what we can do with it. Lastly, if you guys are a bearded gamer such as myself and you're looking for some great beard products, check out beardsorcery.com. Link in the description. Shilling all done. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you are on Archives of Nethys and you look up archetypes, you will notice this exhaustive list of archetypes, and that can be a little overwhelming. So first of all, what are archetypes? They are class features that you can take to give your character additional options, generally branching out into something else very similar to multiclassing from like D&D or previous Pathfinder. The difference though in 2E, you do not have to give up your class progression and your class features as they grow. However, you do have to sacrifice some of your class feats, unless of course you're playing with free archetype, which lets you take an archetype feat every time you take a class feat. Rather than going down this exhaustive list though, you can see at the top here in the archives that there are a few different types of archetypes that you can break these down into. So multi-class, we're going to start there. This is very much like it sounds. If you want a multi-classing experience, this is how you go about doing that. All of these archetypes are the base classes that you can plug in at level 2, and they will give you access to class features and class feats of that particular class. These will usually be half of what your level would be. So if you are a gunslinger, you are going to get at level 6, you're going to have access to things that are level 3. At level 8, you're going to have access to things that are level 4. So on and so forth. These have pretty limited prerequisites, primarily focused on your stats. Some of them you'll notice here, you have some +2, these have been remastered. You have some ones that haven't been remastered, so like at 14. So that again is a +2. Just keep an eye on that when you're going through multi-class. Next interesting one is Artifact. We're going to just jump to this because there's not many in it. So these are archetypes offered because you have items. This can be a fun way for a GM to make some custom homebrew stuff. You can plug access to your archetypes into specific items in your world, or if you're adventurous enough, you can make your own archetype and tie it to an item. So all of these dedications come from rare artifacts and give players access to these through those items. Next up, that I think is worth noting is class archetypes. So these are a little different than normal archetypes. These are going to change your class at a fundamental level. They're not an addition or a second class, they're an alteration to your primary class. I think a good example of that is the spell shot. So we're going to just jump into this one real quick. You have to take these in your level 2 feat slot. So now if you're playing with free archetype, there's a lot of debate online about can you put it in your free archetype? Does it have to come from your class feat? Personally, at my table, I would say because of the very specific wording that these have to come from your class feat to plug it in and the way they fundamentally change your class, I think that's part of the decision-making process of taking a class archetype. So this one, I would say you have to take the spell shot dedication in your class feat 2 slot, and then it will change what deeds you can take and how the gunslinger operates. And then we're going to ignore the rule that you have to take 2 other archetype feats before you can change archetypes, so you could still use your free archetype for something else. That's just my table. Check in with your GM and see what they like. But again, class archetypes, you're not going to be going through these unless you're looking to fundamentally change how your primary class operates. Okay, so next you have combat styles. So if you're looking at archetypes that are going to follow a very specific style of combat, and that is important to your character, you can scroll through here. Some examples are the Archer. So if you're going to be an archer, maybe check out the Archer dedication. The Eldori Duelist, if you're going to be a duelist. Demolitionist, if you're working with bombs, that could be of interest to you. Two-weapon fighting, you can be the dual-weapon warrior, etc., etc. So this is going to break your archetypes down, again, into very combat-focused archetypes to either augment a style of fighting you're already doing, or maybe diverge into something unique for your class type. Factions. So these are things that are tied to factions within Golarion. If you're playing on a homebrew world, these could be maybe off limits at your table, or you'd have to really check in with your GM to see how they work. These all very much have prerequisites that you're part of what these organizations are, or these factions. So if you're going to go this route, you really need to build these into your character backstory and figure out why you have access to them. So like the Hell Knights, the Night Vigilant, Last Wall Sentries, the Firebrands, all very lore-specific archetypes to let you plug into these existing groups within Golarion. This is also a great place to spend some time as a home brewer in a custom world, is making your own faction archetypes to facilitate unique groups and factions within your own world. Mystical. So these are going to be things that, as it describes, are mystical. There's some sort of magical or otherworldly nature to you that brings these things in. So like the Blessed One, a Cathartic Mage. These are all going to be flavored around some sort of unique and beyond the norm influence to what your class is doing. Next, we have the professions. So this is something that perhaps your character really focuses on. So an animal trainer, the acrobat, the archaeologist, an artillerist if you were a gunner on a ship maybe, bounty hunter, the cavalier because you want to make a knightly mounted character, the dandy, this is someone who's really connected into the courts and they have maybe been a courtier or some other element of the government and city operating. The fireworks technician, because you just love 4th of July that much and your character's been making the in-world equivalent of whatever's going on there. So again, these are going to give you archetypes that are more focused on some sort of occupational background or a very niche and specific task or skill set that your character would have. And then last but not least, when you're looking here, is the undead. So if you have characters or you're just running a campaign where maybe everyone is undead, Pathfinder gives you a mode of doing that. Rather than altering your ancestries and your heritage, you take an archetype that fundamentally changes all of those things. This is a great use for the free archetype rules as written, where maybe everyone's a ghost or everyone's a ghoul or everyone has to take one of these undead types. But this is a method to let your characters explore some very unique character builds and things outside of the norm of character creation in a lot of other games. Okay, that is Archetypes 101, giving you guys just a real rough breakdown of what these archetypes are, easier ways to navigate them than just scrolling through the list of the 130 some odd archetypes. So remember some of the unique things. Artifacts are coming from items. Undead are very niche specific play. Class archetypes are to fundamentally change your class. Multi-class archetypes are letting you play other classes in a more traditional multi-class experience from other tabletops. Mystical, profession, and combat style all sound like what they are. They're going to give you very specific skill sets, focusing on a type of combat, a mystical experience or influence, or just a profession in something your character has trained at. Last but not least, you have the faction archetypes, and these are tied to specific entities within the world that you need to have some sort of tie-in and character backstory as to why you have access to them. Let me know what you think about archetypes. What's your favorite archetype? What is a build you're interested in seeing? And let me know if you hate archetypes. We've had a lot of kind of heat around the free archetype stuff in the community, so love to hear your guys' take on all of that. Wishing you guys fantastic time on your 20-side adventures. We'll catch you next time.